In this hadith reported in Al-Tabarani in Ma'jam Al-Kabir, and it's authentic, the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنَ خُلِقَ مُفَتَّنًا تَوَّابًا نَسِيًّا إِذَا ذُكِّرَ ذَكَرَ. The Prophet ﷺ says that the believer is created to go through trials. So you will keep going through trials. This life is just is a series of trials, one after the other. So you'll go through trials to your faith, trials to your mind, trials to your emotional life, physical trials, financial trials. That's what life is about. It's a test. So we are always going through trials. Tawwaban nasiya. But man, what does man do? Man always repents. The believer always repents to Allah, meaning coming back to Allah. We always, lose track, then we come back to Allah. We drift a little bit, then we come back to Allah. That's the nature of man. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the believers, الَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ. They are the ones when they fall into a sin or commit some kind of a crime, they remember Allah, so they seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the nature of man. If you think you're going to be perfect, if you think you're going to be righteous all the time, if you think you're going to be at a peak of belief all the time, then you're fooling yourself, because that's not how humans function. We have ups and downs in our faith, in our belief, in our commitment to Islam, and we should not be dissuaded by that. The moment you feel down, or the moment you feel that you have drifted away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means that's a wake-up call. Bring yourself back to Allah. And you will feel good when you are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you won't be able to maintain that. You're gonna go down again. That's just normal. But don't yield yourself or give up on yourself when you are down, so that you commit more sins. You fight against that until you go to a higher point, and so on and so forth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is saying here that the believer goes through trials and they keep coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Nasiya. The believer is forgetful. We keep forgetting. We keep forgetting. And by the way, just give you a simple example. If you do not, on a consistent and regular basis, remember paradise and the hellfire, you will lose connection to them. You'll start to live your life as if they don't exist. You might say, I know. That's not the knowledge we're talking about. It's not the knowledge we're talking about. Because even if you know the Qur'an, you are supposed to read it and recite it more. You know how to say La ilaha illallah, you know what it means. You know to say Subhanallah, and you know what it means. That's not the point. The point is to keep repeating it. Keep reminding yourself in it. You need to remind yourself. Remind yourself. That is the tool that the Prophet ﷺ gives us. And that's a reason why the Qur'an is called dhikr or dhikra, a reminder, a reminder. So you have to manage your heart and your Iman. And the way to manage this is to keep reminding yourself of the things you believe in. Because if you don't do that, you will lose your faith. If you take it for granted, you say, I already know that, I already believe in Allah, you will lose it if you do not rehearse it, if you do not remind yourself of it, if you do not practice it, if you're not aware of it on a daily basis. On a daily basis. And oftentimes, in our lives, we know there are things we're not supposed to do. Sometimes you just wake up conscious somehow and you're in the middle of something you're not supposed to do. You sort of catch yourself and you say, how did I end up doing this? You just forgot. You will do something that is harmful to you and you will regret it. But a couple of weeks down the line, you will fall in it again. But you know how painful it is. But still you fell for it, because you forget. So unless you remind yourself, unless you keep your memory and your faith heightened by reciting Qur'an, by praying consciously, putting your mind and your heart in the salah, by remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala often, your faith will be taken away from you. You might have very little of it, and then it won't be functional in your life. So the message here and the advice from the Prophet ﷺ is to just keep reminding yourself. We are all forgetful. No matter how good your memory is, it's not a matter of memory. This is something that has to do with the heart and with faith. Since the unseen is not visually apparent to you, then what you need to do is to keep the internal vision of it by reciting the words of Allah, by praying but with focus and attention, and by just remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This should raise the level of your Iman. And that's why one man came to the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, inna shara'i al-Islami qad kathurat alay, fadullani ala amrin atamassaku bihi jami'. Companion came to the Prophet and he said, Ya Rasulullah, the legislations and the advice in Islam are just way too much for me. I can't handle all of them. It's overwhelming. Probably he was an older man. So the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يزال لسانك رطبا من ذكر الله. Keep your tongue moist with the remembrance of Allah. That will keep your Iman high. You keep reminding yourself of the hereafter, because it's easy to forget about it, by the way. Especially in today's world when everything visual and auditory is very attractive and very appealing, and it pulls us in. There's a lot of distractions. They're very powerful. So we need to pull ourselves from there and focus as well, see the full spectrum of reality, not only the seen world, but also the unseen world, and thus we have the full story. And thus we can navigate through this world and live a healthy life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us keep our faith and increase it. Allahumma aghfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat.